So our lead this hour is from the battleground, those key swing states that will help decide who wins the swap meet of football, better known as the trade deadline. I assume you were paying attention. There was nothing else going on. No? On Tuesday? Anyway, perhaps not. Perhaps you were distracted by other events. But the game of musical chairs ended for the regular season. The music stopped. The 2024 NFL trade deadline has passed. Happened at 4 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday afternoon. We saw altogether, they did the math on this, there were 18 moves that were made. And we have the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right, so let us discuss the question for the esteemed panel. How would you rate the experience of the 2024 NFL trade deadline? So I have Orange Juice, Rubber Stamped, and Jim Nantz. And we will put all of these things together, and we are going to gnaw away is what we're going to do. Okay, we're going to gnaw away at the nighttime hours. So A, nobody I know who got traded is a household name. Right? There's no aura points by anybody here. You have mostly roster spam. Hardo football people will tell you there are several players that relocated that are a big deal. But the players that were traded were mostly traded for lower-level scratcher tickets. Right, so as we like to say here, we do not do narrowcasting, we do broadcasting. So we try to talk about people that the vast majority know about. If you look at the logistics, this has been an age-old problem in the NFL, and it is so far behind the other trade deadlines in baseball and basketball and in hockey that everyone is so paranoid about getting burned. Now, that's true in other sports as well, but as a result in football, plus there's this old school mantra that it's impossible to just throw a player in and have them succeed. I mean, like DeAndre Hopkins really has been terrible for Kansas City, for example, who was traded not that long ago. But as a result of the logistics, we have major supply chain issues. Like, I did not see soybeans, pork bellies, or frozen concentrated orange juice repackaged by anybody. The commodities of the NFL, we're lacking the panache at the trade deadline. Now, where is the juice? Well, OJ's dead, but where is the juice at the trade deadline? So who are the winners? Page 2. Who are the winners of the NFL trade deadline? Because I want winners. I want teams that want to win. So as I've laid out for you already, Benny Buzzkill, we lack the razzmatazz. However, on my scorecard, here's how I judged it. I gave the win to the Lions, the Commanders, and the Steelers. All of them get an A on the MALLER report card, and here's why. The front office, the nerds in the front office, what they did is they rubber-stamped these teams as legit teams. All right, this is a test. Hey, do you think we're actually that good? And if you do, then you have to go out and make moves. Now, Kansas City already made most of their, they made their moves prior to the last minute. But of the teams that made moves the last minute, I'm going with the Lions, the Commanders, and the Steelers because they brought in reinforcements. And Detroit, for example, they added someone who's not a household name, Zadarius Smith, but he's a pass rusher from the Browns. They didn't give up anything, which tells you the guy's probably not that good. But he's certainly not Aiden Hutchinson. However, this season, Zadarius Smith, 7 quarterback hits on the season. If you look at the numbers, 5 sacks. No active Detroit Lion has more than 2.5 sacks. So he's got double what they've got on the active roster in Motown. And then the team formerly known as the Redskins added a player that you'd say is a household name, but he's a defensive back. And other than Deion Sanders, there's nobody that's, that was years ago. There's nobody that's a household name. But a cornerback from the New Orleans football team, Marshawn Lattimore, heads to the DMV there. He'll be hanging out and having a fine time. Now, the Saints picked up a lot, I guess, if you like draft picks, a 3rd-round pick, a 4th-round pick, and a 6th-round pick. There were some other picks included, but that is a tremendous endorsement that Washington looks around. They say, well, the Cowboys, they suck. The Giants, as always, are terrible. And Philadelphia is beatable. So the division is right there for Washington, and they needed help, even though statistically they've been pretty good in the secondary. They had Lattimore. Now the Steelers, they made a couple of trades. Mike Williams, who's good until he gets hurt. He wasn't good with the Jets, but he came over from the Jets for a 5th-round pick and also a trade with Green Bay for Preston Smith, who's not a name you know of, but a guy that has been okay. And the Steelers just need okay. They've got stars on defense. They just need to plug in okay around those stars. Now, last word here. The better story is in the losing team's locker room, the teams that flop. So which teams did the old flopperoo at the trade deadline? I'm glad you asked. So the way I broke it down, the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, but what did they do? What are you doing? The Ravens and the Chargers. All of them are on the naughty list at the trade deadline. And there's others, but those are the three we're going to focus in on. Now, Jerry Jones yet again weaved his magic at the trade deadline. The Cowboys made a trade. They said they weren't, then they said they were, and then people said they weren't, then they made a trade. So the Cowboys acquired the great Jonathan Mingo from Carolina. Who? Never heard of him, right? Jonathan Mingo is the guy's name. Now, the Cowboys, the reason this is a head-scratcher, there's 2 reasons, all right? The first one is Dallas traded a 4th-round pick, which is more than the Chiefs traded to get DeAndre Hopkins. The second reason that you question the sanity of Jerry Jones and the Cowboys is they acquired a guy who was not a starter on the worst roster in the NFL, Carolina. You see, Jonathan Mingo wasn't good enough to start for the Panthers, but he's worth a 4th-round pick to the Dallas Cowboys. Who goofed? I've got to know. And then we had the Ravens on the naughty list. Now, the reason they didn't make a big move, but they made a move, and here's why. All right, about an hour before the trade deadline came to an end, my phone starts blowing up, and it was a trade. My Rams, the LA Rams, said bye-bye to Tre'Davious White, who you probably might know if you're a football hardo from his days in Buffalo, defensive back. And the trade was for nothing. I mean, pretty much Rams just gave Tre'Davious White away, and it was like a flip of 7th-round picks. But not even next year, not the year after. It's 2027. And so I end up getting into a spicy debate with Baltimore sports gas bag, Sports with Coleman, friend of the show. And merely pointing out that Tre'Davious White's probably a really nice guy. I don't know him. I'll probably never meet him. But White, these stories, they were over the top. They were billing him as a former Pro Bowl defensive back. What an addition for the Ravens. And I'm like, where's that coming from? Right? Where is that? He's not that guy. You're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy. He is a Jim Nantz type ball player at this point. Burnt toast. Now, to prove that, not only does he fail the eyeball test, he was so bad the Rams said, listen, go find a trade. You suck. We want to send you somewhere else. And they found a sucker in the Baltimore Ravens, although not really a sucker. They didn't get anything in return. So this guy, Tre'Davious White, was in the Rams' doghouse. Out of 205 ranked defensive backs in the NFL this year, according to the nerds, he ranked 177th. So if you want a defensive back that will not be able to keep up with the receivers, that the wide receivers can blow by, that will miss tackles and get absolutely cooked, this is your guy. Tre'Davious White is your guy. And then, as we anticipated, the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh called his shot. He realized the Chargers weren't going to do anything, and they did bupkis. And so despite having suckbag receivers and questionable defensive backs, the Chargers played a silent night at the trade deadline. Wasn't that nice? They did nothing. Absolutely nothing.